Hey there. Thank you so much for listening to Something Super Spiritual. My name is Jeffrey Peck, and I am a psychic medium. If you are seeking conversation with loved ones on the other side, or discussion about spirituality, life after life, and anything in between, join me as we discuss all things spirit. We are collectively experiencing a spiritual awakening right now and recognizing that we are much, much more than we once believed. We don't die, and life doesn't end. We are eternal spiritual beings living in this crazy 3D virtual world of existence. Let's talk about it. Toni Reilly, thank you so much for being here with me on Something Super Spiritual, the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm just very excited to be on your podcast, Jeffrey.
So, Toni, you have such an amazing history and so much to talk about. So let's start at the beginning. When, for you, did you start to experience the spiritual senses, the psychic senses, the mediumship? Like, were you in the crib experiencing this, or did it happen with you later in life?
For me, I was in my 30s, in my mid 30s, before I became really awakened to it. Prior to that, I really didn't think about it much. Life was pretty busy and mainstream. So, I didn't really realize it existed in me until in my 30s. So I was a late starter.
Me too.
Yeah. So, but I guess on reflection, I do remember in my bedroom, I used to sleep in a room with my sister, and there were, I could see weird, I'm going to say, images with my eyes open.
Yep. Okay.
But I guess just energies. We know now, but yeah, I didn't really make any association with it then. Yeah.
So when you saw these images with your physical eyes, did you see like wisps of smoke, or did you see colors, or did you see apparitions of spirit, or all of the above?
I guess if I think about it, do you know, I've never really put this together until now, but it was wispy and grey, and predominantly it would be the etchings, if you like, of faces.
Interesting. Oh, see, that's just fascinating to me, because I haven't experienced anything with my physical eyes. You know, it's yeah.
And Jeffrey, you know what? I have to tell you this because I'm so excited that it happened. It's only ever happened twice to me, and only recently, like in the last 12 or 18 months.
Do tell.
Two times. Yes, 2 times. One time I was staying at my friend's place, and in the middle of the night, I woke up and there was a young man standing at my bed, and I could see him almost as clear as this, almost.
Wow.
But because I hadn't seen like that ever before, I immediately reached out, and of course he disappeared. But I remember what he was wearing, could see. And then another time, even more recently, just a couple of months ago, I was sleeping, and my daughter was staying in the next room. And I felt her there. So I thought she was standing by my bed. So I opened my eyes, and it wasn't her, but this girl leaned over to me and looked down at me in bed. And I literally went, because she looked almost as clear as this.
Wow.
But it was gone in a second. A split second, it was gone.
Did you feel anything? Did you feel anything about them? Like
no,
their emotions, their personality,
I couldn't. And the strange thing is, of course, like you have had a lot of training, but it was like, come on, give me something. What do you want? I couldn't recognize them either. They were not people I recognized. In fact, they weren't from now. They weren't from past lives, but not from now. So it would have been, I guess, mediumship of someone that I wasn't familiar with, but yeah, I couldn't get anything. I know that we usually could sense who they were or what they wanted. Did they have a message? But I think it might have been just a little tap for me that I could see with my open eyes.
Yeah. And maybe that's the direction it's going. Get ready.
Well, and Jeffrey, you know, something that's interesting is my mom, she's not actively doing this, not even close to actively doing it, but people would come to her bed and she would always say, so, you know, someone came last night, and she would see them, but they didn't mean much to her. They weren't people that she recognized. But I'm like, oh, it's happening to me now.
Oh, so this travels through your generations.
Yeah.
How about your kids?
Yeah. So I've got 3. They're all super intuitive. And my youngest one is very involved in the work that we do. And she's very, we call her a magician, very energetic and very, awake, I guess. But I think something that will really escalate her is to go to college, to go to Arthur Findlay College. I think that, I'm so excited that you were there. And I think that the basis of that training is just the best.
Oh, it's everything. It's absolutely everything. So you guys, Toni is one of the other mediums in the book along with me that Carrie Alderucci wrote called Demystifying Mediumship. We talked about this with Carrie in episode 3. And in it, we talk a lot about our experiences growing up, our path, our journey towards mediumship. And Arthur Findlay was enormous for all of us that made it there, you know. And so let's go back then to in your 30s, the origin of your spiritual awakening. When you started to recognize there's more.
Yeah. So the story goes like this. In my 20s, I had a couple of really close friends. I still have them. And so we became interested in getting a reading. So about once a year, we would get together and go and have a reading together. So I suppose I was a believer, was always a believer. And my mom used to talk about ghosty things, you know, happening in the house. Never fear. She was never afraid of anything. Anyway, in those readings over time, almost every time I had one, they would say, oh, you can do this. And I was like, I would almost roll my eyes, just because I thought it was phenomenal what they could do. And I did not have any clue of what these senses meant or how it all worked. So what happened in my 30s, I left my marriage. Actually, it was a catalyst in the lead up to that. All this sort of getting to know myself, emotional turmoil and soul searching. But the thing that struck me the most was that these people had been saying to me, or these readers, you can do this. So I became obsessed with, why, if I'm intuitive, don't I know about it? So the whole journey began, and I literally, I guess now, of course, I know everything's serendipitous and it's lined up and it's, you know, going to play out. But I found a meditation teacher because the reader told me that's what I had to do when I asked him, how come I don't know I have this? So when I started to meditate, do you know, actually, when I found a meditation teacher, I never even knew that people meditated. I had no idea. I thought the monks meditated. That was my only knowledge of it.
Right.
But yeah. So anyway, I found this everyday lady, I don't know how else to describe it, and started meditating in her lounge room with a few other ladies. And I could see and hear as we were meditating, and the most phenomenal things used to happen then when I first started. And I would get all these I think there were actually self-awareness messages for me, but they were very vivid, so I could see and I could feel, and it was emotional and all of these things. So that was it. And from there, I just was obsessed with it. Actually,
Yeah.
I couldn't get enough of it, and life was just wholly and solely different from then.
That's beautiful. And I totally
Yeah,
get that. I mean, that was similar with me, you know,
yeah,
after I became attuned to the Reiki and I was doing my 30 days every day, giving myself a Reiki treatment. That's when it all blew up for me. And I was same thing. I'm getting all these visions and feelings and seeing this, the kaleidoscope of color behind my eyelids, you know, with my eyes closed and
yes,
all of this happening. And oh yeah, it's really, it's a really special time when you start to open up and experience all of this newness, you know, which I suppose ultimately isn't new. We've been around the block quite a few times, right? But it's like rediscovering who we are. And it's
yeah.
just awesome.
It's making me teary.
Oh, it
It's
is. It's,
it was just a really extraordinary time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So yeah, and I love actually. I know that your coming into this was later, similar to mine. So it's like it's really exciting.
Yeah. Yes. I was
Yeah.
36. I was 36. So,
Oh, I was too.
oh my gosh. Yeah. Synchronicity. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
yeah. I think there's more and more of us that are waking up midlife, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it just makes sense with where the world is going. You know, it just
Exactly.
makes sense.
Yeah.
So okay, so you start to open up and you start to experience your psychic awareness. You start to experience spirit. Um, how did you make your way into the past life regression, that therapy with Brian Weiss, Dr. Brian Weiss. In fact, I got to tell you, back then, 2006 ish, like you said, I was obsessed too. I was reading everything I could get, anything I could get my hands on, you name it. I was going to every workshop, every course, I lived near Sedona. So I go to Sedona like
Oh,
every other
so
weekend I
lucky.
was there. Um, so his book, Many Lives, Many Masters, was so intriguing to me. And part of my own personal therapy was I would see a hypnotherapist every week rather than a traditional therapist, counseling, psychologist kind of therapy. I was going to the hypnotherapist. And she too studied with Dr. Brian Weiss. So I've had my own experiences with it. And I'd like to hear what synchronicities lined up for you, nudging you in the direction.
Jeffrey, this is my favorite thing to talk about, because it was so profound for me. But this lady that I found to meditate with, she said to me one day, or one evening after we meditated, "You need to read this book." I'm like, and I never questioned anything then. It was just like, "Oh, yeah, what's its name?" And it was Many Lives, Many Masters. I don't even think that she told me what it was about, but she told me I need to get the book. And it took me many weeks to find it because it was all pretty mainstream, well, in my world, actually. But I found it maybe 3 weeks later, and I opened it and I went to have a coffee to read it. I read at least half of it. And some time just went past, and I remember thinking, "Oh, this is what I'm here to do." Do you know, I never really thought about that much.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was reading that. It resonated so strongly with me. And so I went home, finished the book, and Mary was my meditation teacher's name. And I went to her and I said, actually, as I was reading, I'm thinking, I have to go and have one of these done. I'll have to go to America to have it done. And never occurred to me that Brian, of course, wasn't doing anything like that anymore. But I went back to Mary and I said, "Oh, I need to have this done." And she said, "Oh, I can do this for you, past life regression." So I went on her couch, and To be honest, Jeffrey, I didn't realize that I had any messiness. I didn't know, not until I started meditating. I didn't realize what issues were or insecurities. It just never occurred to me. But it seemed I actually was really fucked up. And my self-worth was low.
Mm-hmm.
Just so anyway, in the course of having regression, it's like, well, what do you want to address? And I thought, wow, I have this weird phobia thing where I can't bear for people to read what I've written. I can't stand them looking over my shoulder. I went through school, couldn't stand it. It never occurred to me that it was an issue. But it was a big issue. Yeah. And I also could not speak in front of people. And I would feel like I was going to faint. So, it was terrible. And I think it's a case for a lot of people, actually. And the other thing I asked about this writing thing. I asked about speaking in public or speaking in front of anyone, really. And I asked about, why, if I'm intuitive, didn't I know this or don't I know it? So those were my three things. And I'm on the couch. All of them were addressed through the regression. But I saw in that regression, I saw 3 lives. And the moment that I could see in my mind, of course, in my third eye, nobody from that point forward could ever tell me that I made that up. I can't possibly have made it up. Mm-hmm. And I knew, and of course I got all emotional as well. And it was just real. And I knew it was me. And of course, the most magical thing was it addressed my issues, all of them.
Wow.
So of course you don't know in the moment when a writing thing is an issue. You have to go back into life and see if it's worked, but it worked. And of course, now I know that I needed to be able to do those things, speak in front of people and write, because my work and my life just took on that direction from that moment forward. So yeah, it was just pure magic. I do not know how else to explain it.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I love that.
Yeah. So incredible. And also from there, I remember after having it done, being in awe, really. And I said to Mary again, I have to learn this. Again, I'm thinking I'm going over to learn this to the States. And she said, oh, I'm having a class I'm having a class this weekend. So I got to learn it in her lounge room. And from there, I just did 2 days training, where basically it was very unstructured. There were, I can't remember if there was 3 or 4 others in there, and it would be one person's on the couch and she'd regress them and we'd all watch. And then it'd be the next one. So that's how I learned, literally observing. And then I started to work with people doing that. And also I was reading as well. It all kind of took off. And that's the big story. And maybe a year later, I went to train with Brian Weiss.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after that weekend, you started taking clients and started doing their own healing regressions.
Yes. The reason that I had that capacity or that opportunity is that I had started working in a crystal shop or a new age shop. Yep. And I was doing readings there using tarot cards. And because I was in that little shop and I'd learnt regression, there were people who would come in interested already in past lives. So I would regress them for a low fee. And from that moment, from the very first one, I kept all of my notes and researched it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so you worked with clients for the next year, and then you got to see Brian Weiss. You got to hang out with him.
Yeah.
In one of his workshops. Is that right?
Yes, at Omega in Upper New York. New York, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was that like then? How did that change or shift what you were doing?
Well, actually, after being there, which I loved being there because he's just extraordinary. But I remember thinking, oh, I already can do this well. And it's slightly different because he's clinically trained,
Yes.
but in his training, he does it his way, demonstrates, and then his wife does it her way, which is a bit much more maybe in line with the way that I was taught to do it.
Sure.
But yeah, that's what I gained from it. That it was already a really gentle way to work, and it worked. So I really didn't change much, if anything, because the way that I was working worked.
Excellent. And
Yeah.
what year was this that you were with?
2008.
Oh, it was 2008. Okay. So you come back from Omega after being with Brian Weiss, and then what synchronicities happened that led you to create your institute?
So one of the things that I noticed was a lot in the training, he regresses a whole group, and there's 120 people in that training, so it's not intimate. But of course, then I realized that, oh, it's actually okay to regress a whole group, and everyone's open and like-minded. So I thought, why not help a lot of people at once? But also it occurred to me that not just from the Brian Weiss training, but from the lady who taught me, there was nothing formatted and certainly not available in our country. So I thought, oh, I've got to start teaching this. I think it's all guided, and I followed
agree.
it like
I
a
totally
bit of a
agree.
psycho. Just couldn't
Yep.
stop. And I think I already knew in a way, and I would have already at least subconsciously known, because even when I was at training with Brian Weiss, it became obvious that he was going to regress a couple of people in front of everyone. He did one person, and it might not seem it. I'm not really shy, but definitely don't want to be up in front of anyone. But of course, I have my regression, so I can now. It's like, shut that girl up. But I went up and said, can you regress me? I wanted to be regressed on stage, or I wanted to be regressed by him, actually. And anyway, he tested my eye roll and things that they do in hypnosis, and so I got regressed up on stage by him.
Wow.
And I suppose in a way I got to talk about that a bit in my training, so it all helped.
So you do groups. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that you could regress. I mean, a huge room of people.
It's different to training them to do regression, but you're giving them an experience. You can't. It's a bit different to facilitating it.
Sure.
In that you can only guide them so far. And then, the way that I like to do it is to guide them in, and then I've explained to them before what to do if they want to ask anything, to move themselves around, this kind of thing. And in the group, away they go. And I actually think the group is powerful in that all the energy's together and the intention is there from everyone that they're going to have some sort of past life experience. And almost, if not everyone does. In my little workshops where I would do it, I used to do it twice. So I would guide them in twice. Just if someone struggled the first time, then they would usually go in the second time. But almost it was a really high percentage of people experience something. And then they talk about it. It's really cool.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Toni Reilly Institute is born. Tell us a little bit more about the Institute and what it is that you offer, the services. I know you're a pretty big deal in Australia. so yeah, talk about your Institute.
Well, the Institute, I did start that after I had been to America for the training. And initially, well, I wanted to teach people to be past life therapists because I could see the power in it and the miraculous results it achieved. And that was always my passion with the past lives, was the therapeutic value behind it. So I wanted to teach that, but also mainly because I had experienced such an incredible awakening from becoming aware of myself, that self-awareness to me went hand in hand with this soul searching that happened and becoming aware of our intuition. So I wanted to teach all of that as well. So I did. And I would go to the cities in Brisbane, Sydney, and Melbourne, actually, mainly. And I ended up with followings and was able to travel to each of those cities to present workshops and run training courses. They were all in person then. And also I would go and see clients when I traveled, and it just rolled on.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I suppose it was magical in itself, actually, because it was almost like no blocks were there. It was just everything open, the doors open. And like I said, I was a little bit psycho in that if I got the idea to phone this person or approach this person, I did. I never hesitated. I was very confident with it. So I got to meet extraordinary people. I got to go on tour with Brian Weiss, and I just got to do phenomenal things, and I guess it all just played out.
Well, you know, it works that way when you are in direct alignment with your soul.
Yeah.
And your purpose and your path. And it's just, it gives me chills. It just gives me chills. It's
beautiful,
awesome.
Isn't it?
And I want to go back to something you said earlier. You had mentioned self-awareness again.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, my favorite line in Carrie's book, Demystifying Mediumship, is the very last line in your chapter. Self-awareness is the ultimate activism. It's so
thanks,
true.
Jeffrey.
It is so true. And that just really, it just pinged everything in me because waking up to the truth within yourself, the truth within who we are, the breaking free from those chains that society teaches us, and culture and religion, and it's just, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, so within your institute, you have the life map. And talk a little bit about the life map and what it is and what it does for people, and where it came from. Like you're cruising through, you're doing these regressions, you're teaching people to regress others and spread that out. So where did the life map happen? How did that happen?
So yes, the therapeutic component was tight and done, and then I kind of had to find ways to help people understand themselves, which is the basis of self-awareness, which I find almost impossible to explain to someone what it is, because you don't know what it is until it's happened.
Until you know.
So yeah. So I think the life map came about. It's based on numerology, and it's based on Pythagorean numerology, which I knew a tiny bit about. But because I work with so many people doing regression and also doing intuitive work with them, and doing all these workshops, you come across a lot of people, and they don't hide anything from you because they trust you, and they're also soul searching. So you really get to study people at the core of their being. So through all of my observations, I Well, I realized that our lives are, I believe they're outlined before we come. All of that's from not just the past lives, but the exploration that comes from doing the regression process. So I wanted to help people understand why they're here. And the life map was part of the first step to self-awareness, which I think is seeing your inherent qualities, your innate characteristics, and the nuances about you, and also your insecurities. And that we all have them. Not one single person is on this planet that doesn't have them. And I think when you become aware of that, starting with the good bits about yourself, because I think a lot of people need a boost at first, because you often just don't realize those things about themselves anymore, and it boosts them up. So the life map is to point out those things to them. And then it's to wheedle the way in to start realizing that you can maybe not even rid yourself of your insecurities, but understand them, understand why they're there and how they drive us and how they permeate in our lives and what we do and how we behave, those kinds of things. So that was what the life map was written for. And Jeffrey, it took me years. It took me a couple of years to write it.
Oh my gosh, I'm sure. I love the numerology. I'm right there with you. And would you explain just bullet points for those who may not understand or really know much about numerology? So like what does it actually mean? Like what do the numbers mean for me?
So numerology based on our date of birth, it's a whole lot deeper than that, but at a base, the numbers within the date of birth that we're born hold energy, so that the numbers 1 to 9 each have a meaning or an energy resonance. And then when they're added together or they're on their own within a grid, which I call life map, but it's a grid when the numbers are placed in there, then we can see all sorts of meanings about the person based on their date of birth. Of course, our lives might have different circumstances, but at the baseline, that map will outline what we're learning here, what we're experiencing. I like to call it experiencing, because the purpose of learning, I feel like, can I think make people assume that they're not doing well enough. And it's like, no, it's just an experience that we're having. And of course, we grow through our experiences, but certainly those experiences at the baseline or the reason behind them it's the same for each person living a certain life mission. And there's only 12. So there's 12. Jeffrey, from memory, you're a 1 and I'm a 5.
Okay. So what do the numbers, like, what is the general archetype or meaning of, say, number 1?
Okay, so number 1 in the life map system, we called you the leader, and it's because with the energy of this mission, you have this natural charisma that draws people in, and you can't study it, you can't make yourself be like it, it just is. And what happens with this leader energy is the big thing or the mission in life is to become very confident. So what happens is, to people looking at you, you appear so confident that they couldn't possibly comprehend that there's any question. But the reality is, inside,
I'm shaking like
there's a
leaf.
lack of confidence. And but over the course of life, you really get to step into your inherent power, which is leader. And I think with the number 1 energy, the most beautiful thing about it is you're actually nurturing other people. And if they're in your inner circle, your special people, then you are just so extraordinarily loyal and wanting to build them up build people up. So, and I guess when you become a medium, for example, or you're working with people, then everyone falls into your lap of wanting to nurture them. And it's not smothery energy either. It's more, if something's up, let's work out how we can fix it.
Yes.
So there's even potentially a practical approach to how can we find a solution for this? So your energy is never one to be dwelling. Some of the other ones are more so like that, but number one's no, let's work it out. And it's really beautiful. So leadership energy, and also by nature. So inherently you can talk to people and you treat people all the same. So it doesn't matter if they're the president or somebody living on the street, they're all the same to you. There's people.
True.
So there's a very big acceptance in that, and people feel it.
Okay.
So there's heaps more to you, but
that's, yeah. So like, you said you're a 5. What's a 5?
A 5. Okay. So 5's in the middle of the numbers, and it's a bit of a, it's an energy that can adapt to whomever they're around. So I guess there's a positive in that. There's an extraordinary positive in it, but there's also the challenge in it would be that it becomes a bit of a people-pleasing energy, and knowing when then there ought to be boundaries. But at the real positive of it, it's also a chatty number. It's a communicating number. So as is 1, and we go together, our energy. So the communication would be extraordinary. But with a 5, the issue will be that communicating your deep feelings. And I don't mean I love you saying that. It's more about communicating your deep needs to your partner. Usually is so hard. It can be really difficult. Okay. So yeah. So obviously outwardly with a 5, they would look like they would never have any trouble talking about something. But if it's with someone where there might be repercussions, then it's difficult. So, but 5 basically very interested in people. It's all about people. And I didn't realize that at first, but it explains my obsession with them. I wanted to know how they operate, how do they tick, why do we do what we do? So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so how about an 8? Let's say an 8. What's an 8?
Okay, an 8 in my system, or in the life map system, we call the 8s authoritarian, because the 8 people are, look, they're basically extraordinary, and they're extremely powerful because they have naturally a cleverness as well as an intuitiveness that can be overpowering. So if they can work out their inherent power and put it to good use, then there's no stopping them. We call them the rulers of the world, actually, because it's really powerful. And also, I didn't make this up, but Sarah Yip, who's an Australian numerologist, she said this to me, and I thought, I'm never forgetting this. You can't lose with an 8 behind you, and you can't win with an 8 in front of you. Because so if they see you as competition, they're gonna achieve it and they're gonna win. But if they're supporting you, you can't lose.
Right.
So it's really special energy. So an 8, and we call them the authoritarian just because they have the capacity to continue with their goals. If it takes a lifetime, they will keep going at it, but so they don't give up, and they're not wishy-washy. So they'll just keep at it. And that's why they can achieve amazing things.
Whatever they set their mind
really
on.
Cool. Exactly. Yeah. And they're also nurturing. So it's a really nice energy.
You know, I can see how this would be so beneficial for somebody to understand about themselves, within themselves.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, what you said about my number resonates,
Yeah.
on my insides. And yeah, the numerology is it's fascinating. I love how you have incorporated this into your work. And
Jeffrey, I was going to say, on the helping people side, it also, as we study ourselves, we naturally want to check out our partner and our children if we have them, check out people around us. And what you come to learn is there's things about themselves and ourselves that can't be changed. We're wired. Some things we can change, but our inherent character we cannot, and our nurtured or natured aspects, we can't change them. So you come to accept it in yourself and embrace it. Likewise with the people around us. So you end up realizing, I can't change that person, or they're never going to be able to resonate with me the way I want. So you can end up just arranging your life a bit better.
Sure.
With the energies that you're also around.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Builds
That's
tolerance, I think. It
Mhm.
builds tolerance and empathy.
I was just going to say empathy. Yeah, it really
Yeah.
builds empathy when you can really look at
Yeah.
somebody and go, I understand you more. I
Yeah,
get you,
exactly. Yeah.
Whereas before it might have, driven you crazy. It might have just
Exactly.
driven you absolutely off the walls. But
Yeah.
then after, knowing that this is their inherent wiring, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Now I can like step back and not be so judgy or so triggered or so,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Taking
awesome.
them personally. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Very good.
So okay. I wanted to ask you, because you're a medium as well. So when you are doing the regressions and
Yes.
you're bringing through past life experiences that are meant to be bring awareness and healing to whatever they're feeling or struggling with in life today.
Yeah.
What then, with all of this vast experience you have, what do you believe happens after we pass, and where do we go, and then what happens over there when we're processing life and making decisions to come back around? How do you see it? How do you experience it? It's a
If
big
I give
question.
it to you, this is in a nutshell.
Mhm.
In a nutshell, when the soul leaves the body, when we die,
Mhm.
that's our soul. It's straight back into the collective energy in a way, back into the collective energy. And there's no retribution for what we did here, because we're humans when we're here. When we leave the body, we are back to soul energy, which, how I try and explain it is, people think they're here to be enlightened, and it's like, oh, actually, we're already that. Our soul is already that.
Yes.
When we're here to have a human experience. So basically, when we leave our body, we're back to that enlightened energy that our soul is. And I think with the reincarnation,
Mhm.
it's agreed. So there is a plan, and it's agreed, and we just, I guess, we are coming back knowing, actually, on a soul level, we know what we're going to be doing next time, what we're, who our parents are going to be, what we're going to experience, and what we're contributing to humanity, or who we're poking, all of those things. And I think because we know that before we're born, and of course we forget it, when people regress, what's actually happening is they're communicating directly with their soul. So that's why the healing is so profound for them, because it doesn't come from the facilitator. It doesn't even come from them. It comes from their soul energy, who knew exactly what they were going to do here while they were alive, And that's why the message that they get and what they're shown makes such sense to them. So that's why it's so extraordinary. But I think from a mediumship perspective, I've heard over the years a lot of people talk about, the medium said my person can't come through because they've reincarnated. But it's not like that, because the soul energy it's omnipresent and it's limitless. So to try and give an example, my spirit is Toni right now, but when I die, and even after I've reincarnated, the Toni energy will still be able to come through a medium or direct to the persons who are still living.
Yes.
So it doesn't disappear. I think the soul energy remembers all of the people that we were, the spirits that we were while we were alive. So it never really disappears.
Agreed.
And so yes, this is so interesting, but that's what you find when you work with this regression. It's really a lot of the death seemed the most important area. And it's always the person in the regression knows that, almost always anyway, they know that it's time and they're going. So there's I know that this isn't necessarily comforting to a lot of people unless they feel like this is true anyway, but nothing is by chance and nothing's by accident. It's all playing out to a universal plan that we're part of.
Sure. So where in that then lies free will?
Oh, Jeffrey, you just asked me about free will. So this is something that I really have a different perspective on to most people. And it is from these 20 odd years of researching and exploring and observing what happens up there and my own trips up there.
Mm-hmm.
But I really believe that our lives are outlined, and no matter what decision we make or don't make, it was always going to be that. But the experience that we had of procrastination, or what if I made that decision? What if I stayed with that person? What if things went differently? Well, they never were going to go differently. But our experience is that we experience procrastination or regret, which are part of the human experience. So basically it's not for us to say, we can do whatever we want, because as people, our will's there to help us. I think to navigate life, we need it. It gives us our logic and our common sense and a means to navigate life as a human. But really, I think our free will, we think we've got free will, and we need to because we're people.
Sure.
But I really feel like it's destined, it's written. And it's why we can, as psychics or with our own intuition, have ideas and thoughts about what's going to happen to us. And this almost goes with the manifestation that a lot of people talk about. But I feel like, and I've felt like this for a really long time now, is that we are not manifesting what happens. We're remembering what was going to happen.
Ooh.
And then that's how I see it.
That's so a different perspective. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Whereas I think when people start to, if we talk about manifesting, which is to do with free will as well, because our mind's going, well, I want this to happen. But if it's not part of the plan, it's not going to happen. So it's almost like if we can chill out and allow, which is very difficult, and trust when shitty things happen, there was a purpose to them, and trust when amazing things happen. It was meant to be as well. So it's almost like if you can get in this mindset of allowing, which is a bit of, if it's meant to be, it will be, which I know pisses some people off. But I feel like when we reach that peaceful point and that contentment in life, then we don't really feel a victim of anything. And
you come
we
to a
can
place
suddenly
of
see the deeper
neutrality.
meaning. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So free will, I think we have it, but it's just playing out with our plan.
So free will is an illusion.
Yeah. Maybe that's one way to put it.
That's rich. You know, are you familiar with Robert Schwartz and Your Soul's Plan, Your Soul's Gift, Your Soul's Love? He's an author. The first book he wrote was called Courageous Souls, and Courageous Souls then turned into Your Soul's Plan. And he, through years and years of research and hypnotherapy as well, regression, he started to discover that we had these plans. And so anyway, this is what it's all reminding me of. And it's just like, it's being discovered, you know, all around, a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And I just think it's fascinating. You know, it's just fascinating.
Yeah. It's all just so, I find it just so exciting.
It is exciting. You know, it really is. You know, and when you were talking about reincarnation, you know, the way I see it, the soul, I look at the soul like a computer hard drive, and all of our lives are different files within that hard drive. So that personality, that person is still part of our soul. It's still part of us. It's still part of the whole. And so that aspect of our soul is always there.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. It's never lost. It is always there. Mm-hmm. Exactly. I love your analogy of it, like a hard drive with the sections. Just
yeah. Little files.
All of them.
So, okay, let me think. Hold on. I went a couple of different ways. There's so much to talk to you about, and like, you know, we're already like at an hour. So I'm gonna have to have you back on again.
I'd love to.
Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? Oh my goodness. I think who inspires me? If I go broadly, it would be Dr. Brian Weiss is a mentor of mine, but I feel like who inspires me, I guess in a human sense, I was inspired by my mom, because she was very kind and patient, and she let me be me, which came into something that I could express in my book, which was about the purpose of life. So my mom inspires me. And oh gosh, who inspires me? To be honest, anyone who's open, who you can have a conversation with, and who's not too rigidly closed mind. I can be inspired by their openness and willingness to be open to perceiving new things.
And sharing. Yeah. What would you like to impart a last bit of wisdom with our listeners?
Okay. I feel like the greatest gift that we can give to ourselves is to realize our positive traits and make friends with what we and maybe others perceive as negative traits, because they're not really. They can be harnessed and they make us who we are. So I feel like, please get to know yourself, and you can do it with astrology or numerology, even with personality tests. Get to like who you are, and then you can just start to feel a lot more peaceful about your life and even those around you.
It's beautiful.
I think, Jeffrey, self-awareness is the ultimate activism, because I think when we know ourselves and we realize that other people also, they might be different to us and it's the way that they are, then we stop telling them what to do or forcing them to be who we want them to be. And or to do what we want them to do. It's like, that's activism. Not telling people what to do. It's like, they're just doing what they need to. So self-awareness, the ultimate activism.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Okay. So where can people find you? Where can people find you, reach out to you? Do you have any events, any courses, classes you would like to tell everybody about?
Oh, I'd love to. My website is ToniReillyInstitute.com, and my email is toni@ToniReillyInstitute.com. But I do teach past life regression and in various ways online. And I'm actually having a live class here in Brisbane next month. Also, my big thing is the SoulLife Coaching Diploma, which I call a new paradigm in psychology. So we learn past life regression therapy and counseling and intuition building and the life map, all of these things that create, I think, a really diverse form of therapy. But it's not even therapy, it's just life. It's beautiful. Yeah. So I do that once a year. Starts in January next year. So if anyone's interested, I can send them a brochure, or you can look on the website, find out about it.
So what is the time frame for that course?
The SoulLife Coaching Diploma is a year, and we do live class. It's on Zoom, so you can do it from anywhere in the world.
Excellent.
But a live class each week, so that we can practice. I feel like learning. It's because this works for me to practice rather than reading statistics or even hearing theories. It's like, let's just do it. So we do a lot of practice, and a lot of bonding happens with the group that you end up with, because we're getting self-aware while we learn to help others become self-aware and work with themselves, work with their stuff.
Beautiful.
So a year. Yeah.
Okay. A year. Yeah. That's a nice investment, and coming out, no, really, in yourself and what you're able to offer people. I mean, yeah, that's beautiful. So, are you able to, so you don't do one-on-one regressions anymore. Is that right?
When I do, well, I do make exceptions if I get the intuition to, but usually when I do them now, it will be in training. So because someone's learning to be a facilitator, or we're about to start in a big way a YouTube channel. Well, the YouTube channel's up, but we're going to focus on helping people understand the power in regression. So I'll be regressing people to highlight to people how it works and why it works, and talking with the person who's been regressed, so we'll be doing it in that regard, rather than, I don't usually see people one-on-one these days. I'm more about teaching it.
You have a lot more going on, a lot bigger stuff going on.
You're
able to really affect a lot more people.
Agreed. And I want to teach many people to do it, so that this therapy is there for a lot of people to access.
Yes. Yeah. Is a regression possible on Zoom?
Yes.
Oh, excellent.
Yes. I think personally, I preferred in person. I just love the energies. But when we were forced to use Zoom, it worked the same. It truly works the same. So, and I guess what we know as mediums is energy doesn't have any boundaries.
Totally.
So it works. Yeah.
Oh, Toni Reilly, I love you to smithereens. I'm so happy to have had this time with you. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's been an absolute delight talking with you.
Okay, we'll cut it there. Oh, this was so much fun.
You're fantastic.
Oh, thank you. You're fantastic. Goodness. Takes one to know one.
I love your questions. I love that you're doing this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.